It started with a sealed palace briefing that was never supposed to leave the walls of Clarence House. But within hours, whispers began racing through royal corridors that an urgent title restoration tied to Princess Eugenie had quietly overturned months of behind-the-scenes negotiations linked to Meghan Markle's standing within the royal circle. Courtiers suddenly stopped talking when aides entered rooms. Security schedules shifted overnight, and by dawn, senior insiders were already calling it the most explosive royal correction since the aftermath of the Sussex departure. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, palace aides reportedly tried to dismiss the entire situation as routine administrative restructuring, the kind of internal adjustment that rarely survives beyond the private offices of Buckingham Palace. But according to several royal commentators and insiders familiar with the atmosphere inside Clarence House, this was something very different. The urgency alone reportedly alarmed longtime staff members. A late-night emergency meeting involving King Charles III, Princess Anne and Prince Edward allegedly stretched far beyond midnight, with legal advisors quietly entering and exiting restricted corridors while communications teams were instructed to remain on standby. By sunrise, senior coordinators had already begun revising guest access schedules tied to future ceremonial events, while whispers surrounding dormant title protocols connected to Queen Elizabeth II's final directives began spreading across palace administrative circles with astonishing speed. What made the atmosphere even more unsettling was the growing belief that Princess Eugenie herself had allegedly been informed of the restoration before several senior aides responsible for royal scheduling and ceremonial planning. That detail alone reportedly triggered confusion behind palace walls because it suggested the decision had bypassed normal institutional sequencing. Some insiders even claimed the move was handled through an accelerated channel usually reserved for constitutional emergencies or succession-level adjustments. And while no official confirmation emerged publicly, the silence from Buckingham Palace only intensified speculation. Royal commentators began linking the sudden restoration to growing tensions over what insiders now describe as working royal legitimacy, a phrase that has reportedly become increasingly common inside the monarchy since King Charles III's health struggles first became public in early 2024. At the center of the storm, however, was not simply Princess Eugenie's restored standing. According to several reports circulating among royal correspondents, Meghan Markle's supporters allegedly believed separate discussions involving ceremonial privileges and future royal visibility were still ongoing behind closed doors. Those expectations reportedly created a fragile sense of optimism among Sussex-aligned figures, who believed a softer institutional approach might eventually emerge under Charles's reign. But the abrupt restoration tied to Eugenie appeared to shatter those assumptions overnight. Palace staff allegedly began treating the situation not as a temporary dispute, but as a decisive correction designed to reinforce the monarchy's increasingly rigid internal hierarchy during a period of vulnerability for the crown. The tension reportedly became impossible to ignore. Security staff were allegedly instructed to revise upcoming royal guest lists within hours. Event coordinators quietly reviewed seating arrangements tied to future public appearances. Even longtime courtiers familiar with decades of palace turbulence supposedly described the mood as unusually cold and disciplined. One insider reportedly claimed that conversations surrounding duty over popularity had intensified dramatically in recent months as senior royals grew increasingly concerned about preserving institutional control during the king's declining health. And while many initially believed the restoration was symbolic, others began whispering that it carried a much deeper message aimed directly at the future direction of the monarchy itself. Because behind the palace walls, this was no longer simply about personalities, public approval, or media narratives. Reports suggest senior figures within the royal household had become deeply alarmed by what they viewed as a growing blur between royal duty and celebrity influence. Princess Anne, in particular, was allegedly determined to reinforce the idea that royal standing could not exist independently from institutional loyalty and service. Several commentators even suggested the restoration was part of a broader internal strategy designed to strengthen bloodline continuity at a moment when the monarchy feared instability more than ever before. And as whispers surrounding hidden protocols, inheritance optics, and succession anxieties continued spreading through royal circles, one reality slowly became impossible to ignore. But the deeper truth behind Eugenie's sudden rise was not simply about titles or appearances. It was tied to a silent power struggle over who still belonged inside the sacred geography of the monarchy. Long before the public noticed the shift, the foundations for this royal restoration may already have been buried deep inside the monarchy's oldest institutional safeguards. Reports suggest Queen Elizabeth II spent years quietly studying how royal titles, ceremonial privileges, and bloodline legitimacy could one day become vulnerable during a period of instability. And as King Charles III's health battles intensified throughout 2025, insiders claim those hidden protections suddenly became far more important than anyone expected. For decades, Princess Eugenie occupied an unusual position inside the royal structure. She was never fully central to the monarchy's operational core, yet she was never truly distant from it either. That quiet balance reportedly earned her a level of trust many outsiders underestimated. Palace historians now whisper that Queen Elizabeth II allegedly viewed Eugenie as part of a younger generation capable of preserving royal continuity, without aggressively seeking the spotlight that often destabilized the institution. According to several commentators familiar with royal tradition, the late Queen had grown increasingly concerned during her final years about what some insiders privately described as the celebrity drift surrounding parts of the modern monarchy. The fear was not simply about popularity, it was about survival, about whether royal identity would remain rooted in service and restraint or become consumed by branding, personal influence, and media warfare. As those fears quietly deepened behind palace walls, sources close to Buckingham Palace administration claim senior aides began revisiting old constitutional mechanisms that had not been seriously examined in years. Letters patent dating back decades were reportedly reviewed again. Succession-era protocols, once treated as dormant historical documents, suddenly became part of active internal discussions. Royal legal advisors allegedly studied ceremonial precedent structures with unusual urgency, while palace traditionalists pushed for clearer boundaries between working duty and public celebrity. And at the center of many of those conversations, according to multiple insiders, stood Princess Anne. Those familiar with Anne's institutional mindset claim she became increasingly alarmed by what she reportedly called visibility without duty. To Anne, insiders suggest the monarchy was never meant to operate like a modern entertainment machine built around personalities. It was supposed to function as a disciplined structure where loyalty, restraint, and service protected the crown through periods of national uncertainty. As controversies surrounding Harry and Meghan continued dominating headlines across both Britain and America, fears allegedly intensified that public perception of the monarchy was slowly shifting away from duty and towards spectacle. Several commentators even claim palace officials worried younger royals might begin believing public influence alone could outweigh decades of institutional service. That fear reportedly changed how certain senior figures began viewing Princess Eugenie's role within the wider royal family. Though never considered a frontline working royal, Eugenie allegedly came to symbolize something safer to the old guard, a bloodline connection still tied to tradition, without directly threatening the monarchy's carefully guarded hierarchy. Some insiders quietly described her as a potential bridge between the younger generation and the institutional values Queen Elizabeth II spent 70 years protecting. And as King Charles III's condition reportedly worsened behind closed doors, discussions surrounding future balcony appearances, ceremonial positioning, and patronage influence allegedly became more intense than ever before. What made the atmosphere even more fragile was the growing sense that time itself was beginning to pressure the monarchy into making difficult choices sooner than expected. Palace aides reportedly feared a prolonged period of instability if clear symbolic boundaries were not reinforced before the next major royal transition arrived. Behind closed doors, officials allegedly debated who should remain visibly connected to the crown during upcoming state moments, and who might slowly be moved further away from the institution's centre. Every discussion carried consequences. Every adjustment risked triggering public backlash. And while the palace publicly maintained silence, insiders claimed tensions were quietly reaching a dangerous boiling point. Yet none of those quiet discussions prepared the palace for what allegedly happened next, because insiders claim Meghan's camp was already pushing for something far larger behind the scenes. By early spring, the atmosphere surrounding the royal household had reportedly become icy, fractured, and deeply unpredictable. Various interpretations of internal meetings suggest multiple senior aides feared another institutional crisis was quietly approaching. What began as whispered disagreements over ceremonial recognition allegedly evolved into a far more dangerous confrontation involving influence, access, and the future image of the monarchy itself. And according to several royal insiders, Princess Anne had finally reached her limit. Behind the carefully controlled silence of Buckingham Palace, tensions were reportedly escalating at a pace even veteran courtiers found alarming. What had once seemed like quiet disagreements over titles and ceremonial positioning allegedly transformed into a bitter internal struggle about the monarchy's identity during one of its most vulnerable periods in decades. Reports suggest Meghan Markle's supporters still believed revised arrangements tied to future royal visibility were possible under King Charles III's reign. Some insiders even claimed ongoing conversations surrounding selective ceremonial participation had created cautious optimism among Sussex-aligned circles. But inside palace administrative offices, that growing expectation reportedly triggered deep unease among senior royals, determined to prevent what they saw as a dangerous erosion of institutional discipline. At the same time, Princess Eugenie's increasing visibility allegedly began taking on a much larger symbolic meaning. Several royal commentators quietly interpreted her rising presence not as coincidence, but as a calculated institutional counterweight designed to reinforce traditional bloodline loyalty without reopening the chaos surrounding Harry and Meghan. The contrast reportedly became impossible to ignore. Eugenie maintained proximity to the monarchy while avoiding direct public warfare with it. Meghan and Harry, however, remained deeply tied to global media narratives, commercial ventures, and ongoing controversies that many palace traditionalists allegedly viewed as destabilizing to the crown during Charles's declining health. That distinction, insiders whisper, became central to private strategy discussions unfolding behind closed doors. Palace administrative streams reportedly revealed growing disagreements over who should represent the monarchy during future international appearances and state-level engagements. According to sources familiar with royal planning operations, some aides pushed for a softer public image built around reconciliation and modern accessibility. Others, particularly those aligned with Princess Anne and Prince Edward, allegedly argued that the monarchy had already paid too high a price for blurred boundaries between royal duty and celebrity influence. One senior insider reportedly described the atmosphere as emotionally exhausting, claiming multiple palace departments had become divided between competing visions of the monarchy's future. Meetings reportedly grew longer, colder, and increasingly tense as uncertainty surrounding King Charles III's health intensified pressure on everyone involved. At the centre of that storm stood Anne herself. Those close to royal operations claim she became increasingly frustrated by what she allegedly viewed as institutional hesitation at a moment requiring clarity and discipline. Insiders whisper that Anne and Edward both feared blurred royal boundaries were beginning to weaken the monarchy's credibility with both the public and the old guard inside palace structures. The concern was no longer simply about Harry and Meghan as individuals. It was about precedent, about whether media influence and public pressure could eventually reshape royal legitimacy itself. Several commentators now believe that was the exact moment Anne stopped viewing the situation as a temporary family dispute and started treating it as a constitutional threat to the stability of the crown. Meanwhile, King Charles III reportedly found himself trapped between emotional loyalty and institutional survival. Various interpretations of private meetings suggest the king repeatedly attempted to mediate competing pressures behind closed doors, hoping to avoid another public fracture within the family. But according to insiders, the emotional strain allegedly became visible even among senior staff. Morale inside certain palace departments was reportedly described as tense, draining, and at times emotionally unbearable as uncertainty spread across the royal household. And as briefing after briefing unfolded, one phrase allegedly began circulating more frequently among senior courtiers and royal strategists alike: duty over celebrity. That phrase reportedly carried enormous weight because it symbolized something far deeper than public image management. It reflected the growing belief among palace traditionalists that the monarchy had entered a decisive moment where survival would require painful institutional choices. Every meeting, every revised protocol, every carefully managed appearance now seemed tied to a larger invisible battle over the crown's future direction. And while the public remained largely unaware of how severe those tensions had become, insiders claim the palace was already moving dangerously close to a breaking point from which there might be no easy return. But while tensions grew louder inside the palace walls, the real turning point came with a document few outsiders were ever meant to see. According to whispers emerging from palace administrative circles, everything changed the moment Princess Anne allegedly invoked what insiders now describe as an emergency institutional safeguard designed to protect working royal integrity. It was not announced publicly. There were no cameras, no speeches, no dramatic balcony appearance, just signatures, revised protocols, and a quiet bureaucratic counter-offensive that reportedly stunned even seasoned royal staff members. What made the situation so extraordinary was the speed. Palace insiders claim the operation moved with a level of precision rarely seen outside periods of royal transition or constitutional uncertainty. Within hours of the internal decision being finalized, Princess Anne and Prince Edward allegedly coordinated what several commentators have since nicknamed the Windsor Continuity Protocol, a rapid institutional review focused on reinforcing ceremonial discipline and bloodline hierarchy during one of the monarchy's most fragile modern chapters. According to sources familiar with royal administrative systems, the process reportedly involved legal advisors, protocol specialists, and senior scheduling officials working behind closed doors to examine ceremonial restoration pathways connected to Princess Eugenie's standing inside the wider royal structure. The deeper those reviews allegedly went, the clearer it became that this was never simply about one princess regaining visibility. Palace insiders claim the entire operation was designed to send a far larger message about loyalty, restraint, and the future identity of the crown itself. Event invitations tied to future state functions were reportedly revised within 48 hours. Seating arrangements connected to upcoming ceremonial appearances allegedly changed without explanation. Internal planning documents were quietly updated while communication teams were instructed to maintain absolute silence. Even longtime royal staff members reportedly struggled to understand how rapidly the institutional machinery had begun moving once Anne gave her approval. Several commentators later described the strategy as bureaucratic warfare carried out with surgical precision, and according to palace sources, that description may not have been far from the truth. Anne reportedly believed the monarchy could no longer afford hesitation, while King Charles III's health battles continued draining stability from the institution. The concern, insiders whisper, was that uncertainty itself had become dangerous. Every unresolved question surrounding royal legitimacy, public representation, and ceremonial access risked creating new fractures inside an already exhausted palace structure. And for Anne, those fractures allegedly pointed back to one central fear: that the monarchy's traditional boundaries were slowly dissolving under the pressure of modern celebrity culture. As those tensions intensified, Meghan Markle reportedly became the indirect symbol of a much broader institutional debate unfolding behind palace walls. According to insiders, the issue was no longer solely about Meghan or Harry as individuals. They had instead become representations of two competing visions for the monarchy's future. One side allegedly favoured a more flexible, media-driven institution capable of adapting to modern celebrity influence. The other, led by Anne and supported quietly by Edward, reportedly viewed that path as deeply dangerous during a period of royal vulnerability. Palace traditionalists feared that once ceremonial privilege became separated from disciplined royal service, the crown itself could gradually lose the authority that had protected it for generations. Caught in the middle of this escalating conflict was King Charles III himself. Sources close to royal operations claim the king spent weeks privately resisting drastic action, hoping some form of emotional reconciliation might still remain possible. But insiders whisper that Anne's growing alarm, combined with worsening institutional tensions, eventually forced Charles into a painful decision. Reports suggest the king ultimately approved the continuity measures not because he wanted confrontation, but because he feared what continued uncertainty might do to the monarchy during such a physically and emotionally exhausting chapter of his reign. Several aides allegedly described him afterward as deeply withdrawn, burdened by the realization that preserving the institution might now require sacrifices he once hoped to avoid entirely. And once the restoration process quietly moved forward, the consequences reportedly spread across the royal household faster than anyone anticipated. The moment news of the restoration began leaking beyond palace gates, shockwaves reportedly erupted across royal circles from Buckingham Palace to Montecito. What had once looked like a slow and uncertain institutional balancing act suddenly transformed into something far more brutal, a visible reassertion of who the monarchy intended to reward, protect, and preserve for the future. And according to multiple insiders, the message was impossible to misunderstand. Reports suggest palace staffers quietly interpreted the decision as a symbolic victory for bloodline continuity at a moment when the monarchy feared instability more than scandal itself. Inside royal corridors, the atmosphere allegedly shifted almost overnight. Princess Eugenie reportedly began receiving noticeably warmer institutional support, while commentators openly questioned whether Meghan Markle's remaining royal associations had suffered irreversible damage. To some observers, the restoration looked less like reconciliation and more like a carefully calculated line being drawn by the old guard. Certain Sussex-aligned figures allegedly viewed the move as a cold institutional rejection, proof that the palace had finally chosen discipline over emotional compromise after years of internal strain. Behind closed doors, sources familiar with royal scheduling claim future ceremonial positioning may already have been quietly reshaped in ways the public would not immediately notice. Invitations changed, priorities shifted, internal loyalties hardened. And as the fallout intensified, King Charles III reportedly became increasingly withdrawn, emotionally exhausted by the conflict unfolding around him. Palace insiders claim Anne and Edward gradually stepped forward to stabilize operations, while the monarchy attempted to project calm to the outside world. But within the institution itself, staffers allegedly described the atmosphere afterward with three chilling words: cold, disciplined, and final. In the end, palace observers insist this was never truly about Princess Eugenie or Meghan Markle alone. The real battle centered on whether the monarchy would continue evolving into a celebrity-driven institution or retreat back toward the rigid doctrine that once defined the House of Windsor for generations. According to insiders closest to the palace, Queen Elizabeth II's philosophy of service before self heavily shaped the final outcome. Royal traditionalists reportedly viewed Eugenie's restoration as proof that loyalty, restraint, and institutional discipline still mattered within the firm, especially during a period overshadowed by King Charles III's declining health. Princess Anne allegedly emerged from the crisis stronger than ever, with commentators increasingly describing the monarchy as entering a colder and more tightly controlled era under the influence of Anne and Prince William. Meghan Markle's supporters, insiders whisper, may have underestimated just how deeply the palace feared reputational instability while the crown itself appeared vulnerable. And as one phrase reportedly resurfaced again and again inside private discussions, the firm before the family, the monarchy's direction, suddenly became unmistakably clear. But beneath the headlines, the restoration carried an even deeper warning, tied not to personalities, but to the survival instincts of the crown itself. And as the palace gates closed once again under the silence of royal protocol, one reality lingered above all others. In the House of Windsor, titles may glitter in public, but survival is decided in private. While the public focused on Meghan Markle and Princess Eugenie, insiders claim the true victors of the crisis were the figures who never needed cameras to exercise power. Behind closed doors, Princess Anne, Prince William, and Prince Edward allegedly tightened their grip on the machinery of the monarchy with astonishing efficiency. And according to several palace commentators, this may have been the clearest signal yet that a new royal order is already quietly forming behind King Charles III. Reports suggest Prince William increasingly aligned himself with Anne's institutional philosophy during the crisis, embracing a colder and more disciplined vision for the monarchy's future. Prince Edward, meanwhile, allegedly handled many of the delicate legal and ceremonial details tied to the restoration process, quietly reinforcing palace structures while public attention remained fixed elsewhere. Royal aides reportedly described the trio as operating with cold unity throughout the negotiations, moving carefully but decisively as fears surrounding instability inside the crown continued growing. To many insiders, this was no longer simply a family disagreement. It was a controlled restructuring of royal power happening in real time. Several palace historians now claim the monarchy is entering a far more tightly controlled operational era than anything seen in recent years. Younger royals, according to insiders, are allegedly being evaluated less on popularity and more on discipline, restraint, and long-term loyalty to the institution itself. Palace commentators argue that years of public controversy accelerated fears surrounding future scandals, pushing senior royals to consolidate authority before another unpredictable crisis could emerge. And as trust became the most valuable currency inside Buckingham Palace, many believe the inner circle surrounding the crown quietly became smaller, stricter, and far less forgiving. As silence settles once again over Buckingham Palace, insiders believe this restoration was only the beginning of a much larger reckoning still waiting ahead. Behind the polished appearances and carefully managed ceremonies, the monarchy is reportedly preparing for a future shaped by survival, sacrifice, and ruthless protection of its own legacy. Princess Anne is allegedly pushing for stricter boundaries surrounding future royal privileges, while Prince William reportedly remains determined to avoid what insiders call the celebrity collapse pathway that threatened the institution during years of public turmoil. Eugenie's restoration itself is now increasingly viewed as part of a broader long-term restructuring effort designed to reinforce loyalty and institutional control before the monarchy faces an even larger transition. Royal commentators argue the palace has become far less tolerant of unpredictability, public dissent, or emotional bargaining behind closed doors. Several insiders believe future royal access may depend almost entirely on discipline, usefulness, and unwavering loyalty to the crown. And with King Charles III's health struggles continuing to cast uncertainty over the future, the monarchy allegedly finds itself entering its most strategically defensive era since the aftermath of Princess Diana's death. What once looked like flexibility is now being replaced by caution. What once appeared negotiable is now being guarded with extraordinary intensity. But even after the restoration was finalized, one haunting question continued echoing through palace corridors: what happens next if the monarchy faces an even larger succession crisis? Because inside the ancient machinery of the crown, forgiveness may still exist, but trust, once broken, is rarely restored. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.